Super Wild Card weekend officially come to a close, and it will be Dallas making their way to San Francisco next Sunday following a 31-14 win over Tampa Tom and the Buccaneers. Brady threw it 66 times for 351 yards, 2 touchdowns, a costly red zone interception early in this one. Slow to start with the Buccaneers as Brady suffers his first career loss against the Cowboys, previously 7-0, but he is not the story. Tomorrow's story. Dak Prescott, was him. 25 of 33 for 305 and 4 touchdowns. Becomes the first Cowboys QB with 300-plus passing yards and 4 passing TDs in a playoff game. Let's dive in with the 10-year vet Lige Douzable and the 2-time champ Bryant McFadden. Guys, a comprehensive whooping, I think, is a pretty succinct way to put it. We're going to dive into it all, the present and the future, but in the here and now. Dak Prescott and these Cowboys look prepared for this moment, Deuce.
To all the non-believers, including myself, Dak Prescott, I apologize. From the bottom of my heart, I truly apologize. You and Kellen Moore had Todd Bowles and that defense in a blender. When they tried to go cover 3, cover 4, you killed them down the seam all day long. And then the first half, really good job using your legs, not putting the ball in harm's way. That's what we talked about in the pregame show, right? If it wasn't there, he escaped, used his legs, and got first downs. Too many times the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not have contain, and he was actually able to be mobile, right? They even used him on a option in the red zone. So kudos to Kellen Moore for, dialing up a hell of a game, but Dak Prescott was throwing some absolute dots. We just saw the touchdown pass to Dalton Schultz right there. That was him escaping to the left. He's right-handed, throwing across his body and being able to find Dalton Schultz in the back of the end zone, and then, again, bootleg down in the red zone. Defensive end, loses contain, crashes down. Dak Prescott just walks into the end zone. But this, honestly, Moose and B-Mac, was the best I've ever seen Dak Prescott play. You can tell that people were talking, and he was hearing all the outside noise and wanted to silence the critics, and he went out there and did it on the biggest stage.
Most notably, no interceptions. B-Mac, what'd you make of Dak in this moment?
Cowboys, the Buccaneers defensively had no answer. Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott. He was always a step ahead of anything that the Buccaneers were trying to present to them from the defensive side. You guys talked about how efficient he was, how consistent he was, how accurate he was, and not to mention, as you mentioned, Joe, very, very smart with the football, extremely smart with the football. With all the criticism he faced coming into tonight's matchup, he didn't hear any of it clearly because he was in his bag from start to finish. And this is a great way to jumpstart your playoff run. When you talk about being a part of the Cowboys, knowing that every game you participate in the playoffs will be on the road, being able to go on the road, playing against a team that clearly has been down a lot throughout the course of the year, but you kick more dirt on them. This is a confidence booster, not just for the Cowboys, but most importantly for Dak Prescott.
Everybody said Dak had to be better, and he answered in kind with an amazing performance in this game. Collects his second playoff win. He'll be looking for more moving on to San Francisco. When you take a look at what this defense did out of the Cowboys, they shut down Brady. He threw it 66 times. That's a career high, playoffs or regular season, and it was really out of desperation late in the game. But when you look at what the defense did, Deuce, was the defense that good, or was Tampa's offense just as bad as we've seen them all season, or option C, all of the above?
I would say option C, all of the above. You want to give some respect and credit to this Dallas Cowboys defense. Jaron Kearse played a heck of a game. I know he got dinged up in that game, but it started with that red zone interception, and that was a terrible throw by Tom Brady. If you're trying to throw the ball away, make sure you throw it into the stands, into the 4th row. Right there, you're backpedaling, you don't get enough on it, it gets picked off. But he did a really good job getting down the seams, and him and Leighton Vander Esch, when Tom Brady was trying to find the tight ends down the seams, too many times he was trying to throw it, those guys were right there almost picking him off every single time when he was trying to find Cade Otton down the seam or Cameron Brate down the seam. And they did a really good job. Mukamu, who we didn't talk about in the pregame, this young corner has played really well in the slot for them today. He hasn't played a lot this year, but, Chris Godwin still went over 85 yards, but he gave him fits all day long. So kudos to this Dallas defense. We know that Dak Prescott will get the headlines, but if you talk about Quinn, Coach Quinn had a masterful plan coming into this game, and he allowed his front four to really get after it. And Tom Brady was inaccurate on some passes, threw some passes behind Russell Gage, a few passes behind Mike Evans, but this defensive line got after it. But those linebackers played a heck of a game for the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean, in totality, the Cowboys they were the best team when their defense was on the football field. And one thing that I had concerns with in regards to the Cowboys defensively was they have been vulnerable against some offenses' rushing attack. The Achilles heel for the Buccaneers was what? The inability to run the football. And that surfaced once again. The Cowboys did a great job in just effacing their ground and pound attack out of the game early in the ball game in the first quarter. They only finished with 52 yards on the ground, and they were fighting from behind a lot. But if you look at the first half, they just couldn't generate anything running the football. The Cowboys defensively only was credited with 2 sacks, but think about how much they were able to harass Tom Brady. Tom Brady was just throwing the football, not even looking at the pass catcher because he was just trying to get out of harm's way. So they did a great job in collapsing the pocket, not allowing Tom Brady to be comfortable. And like I said, this was a nice way to jumpstart your playoff momentum in regards to the Cowboys and their deep playoff aspirations that they have moving forward.
All right, let's take it back to the offensive side of the ball because this is a performance that deserves some shine in this very moment. Dak Prescott, highest passer rating in Cowboys playoff history, 143 passer rating. He did just about everything right. And I know he was fantastic, and there's multiple ways to frame it, Douz, but where do you feel like this came from? Because this was not the Dak Prescott we'd seen for the last month.
Yeah, I think he put a precipice on not turning the football over, but also still staying aggressive. Did a really good job just attacking the middle of the field, Joe. And again, Kellen Moore put him in really good situations. Got him using his mobility early in that game, a couple bootlegs. He found Jake Ferguson for an explosive 30-yarder early in that game, used his legs again down in the red zone on that option. And then on 4th and 1, when you think that Ezekiel Elliott's getting the ball, we pull a bootleg with our quarterback and get him on the edge and get an easy walk-in touchdown. But when you're efficient throwing the ball on a run and you get comfortable in the pocket, that's one thing we need to talk about. This Bucs defensive line did not get after Dak at all. He was comfortable in the pocket. I think they really felt the loss of Shaq Barrett in this game. And if you're Todd Bowles, like, you feel for him, right? Because when you decide to go cover 3, cover 4, and let your front 4 rush, he had all day. We saw the first touchdown of Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz ran it out and up. It takes time to run that, and nobody was even near Dak Prescott. So the offensive line did a really good job, and Dak was accurate with the football.
I'm glad you brought up that specific rep with the out and up because we talked pregame about the throws Dak was being asked to make.
Correct.
We didn't see a lot of those out routes. We saw a lot of vertical. We saw a lot of seams. We saw everything on time. Do you think that aided maybe in his confidence in this game early?
I think 100% it did. I think Kellen Moore, and B-Mac can speak to this, coaches self-scout themselves. They understand what their players do well and what they don't do well. The last 2 weeks when Dak Prescott has gotten in trouble is throwing the ball outside the numbers on those out routes. So they attacked the middle of the field, whether it was man coverage and Todd Bowles decided to send 5 and went man coverage. He threw the ball in the middle of the field to Michael Gallup. When it was zone coverage, he attacked with the tight ends down the seam, and then they got him on the edge on some bootlegs where he doesn't have to throw out routes, right? He threw it to Jake Ferguson, who was wide open on a catch and run for 30+. So Kellen Moore, I believe, self-scouted and realized, let me help my quarterback out. Let him stop throwing these out routes. Let's get him comfortable in the pocket and throw in the middle of the field and attack this Bucs defense in the middle.
And I think when you look at the success from Dak Prescott, I think the game ball goes to, as a unit, the offensive line. Leger, you talked about how outstanding they were. They only surrendered 1 sack. And outside of that, Dak Prescott only got touched when he was scrambling. That's impressive. And yet and still, you have to understand when you're going against a team that's missing their best pass rusher, you don't want to allow them to get any momentum going against your quarterback. From start to finish, the offensive linemen from the Cowboys did a great job in protecting Dak Prescott and allowing him to get comfortable early in the ball game, and that just flowed for 4 quarters for Dak Prescott. So when you talk about seeing quarterbacks throw interceptions, 2 things either happen. They're rushing, throwing the football because the pressure is getting to them, or they're just not seeing the football field well enough because the pressure is collapsing the pocket. So when you look at what we saw tonight compared to what we've seen in weeks past in regards to the turnover issues with Dak Prescott, they made sure they protected him as best as possible. Now, can they continue to do that moving forward? We have to wait and see. But if you want to get the best out of number 4, the offensive linemen have to do a great job in protecting him.
And that's just it. You're only as good as your next one. This Dallas team with this type of performance looks like they could beat just about anybody in this league. They are 4-point underdogs headed to San Francisco. A comprehensive effort here outside of just one phase of the game. We do have to talk about the kicking game. We don't often hear, guys. That's something that they had room for error in tonight. Brett Maher, 1 for 5 extra points. had a streak of 5 in a row that he missed, including 1 last week. It was absolutely the worst possible outcome for him in this moment. Confidence is everything when we're talking about the kicking game. B-Mac, I'll go out to you first. Is this the kicker next week in the divisional round? Can this be the kicker next week? I know he made one late in this game, but at one point, stretching from week 18 to this game, 5 consecutive misses. 5 points left off the scoreboard by the kicker, who I will add has one job, B-Mac. Are they shopping this week?
No, they're not shopping at all. Nah, one thing about Maher, he had an off game, but luckily enough for him, this was the best game to be off. They didn't need the extra points. But if you look at what he's done throughout the course of the year, he's been a pretty good kicker. I mean, he's been a guy who's really been a big-time playmaker for them, not just in regards to extra points, but you talk about long field goals, 40-plus yarders, you know what I mean? So he's been really good for them. I don't think you bail on him based on him having a bad night. I think you understand this is basically a short week for you. You participated on Monday, so if you're going to try to have a kicker tryout, you got to start making calls right now. And who do you bring in? If you're bringing in someone off the street, the rhythm might not be there. So me personally, understand he's been off. Talk to him, help him build his confidence up. Hopefully he has a great week of prep getting ready for San Francisco, and you continue to ride with your guy.
You get out the Palo Santo, you get out the sage, you do everything you got to do to get that man right and back in the good graces. They move forward to a big matchup with the Niners. We'll get to that in a second, but we do have to address the Buccaneers side of this conversation, and it's going to be a conversation that rolls on until we get an answer. Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowls, 20 playoff appearances. Looked at times this season, guys, to just not be enjoying himself. Surly in moments. What's left for Brady in this league? Not to accomplish, but what is that carrot dangling in front of him, Deuce?
I mean, I think he just wants to add to his legacy. I mean, he has 7 Super Bowl rings, and he just wants to keep adding to that legacy. And sure, there will be a few teams lined up, probably at least 3 for his services that feel like maybe they're just a quarterback away from potentially making a run at a Super Bowl. You look at the Las Vegas Raiders, the familiarity with Josh McDaniels. You also look at the Tennessee Titans potentially. You know, him and Mike Vrabel have history together. Could that be an answer? The Miami Dolphins have been talked about, but I just think that's, after everything they went through with tampering and with him, I don't think that's going to be an answer. So there'll be a few teams vying for his services. The thing is, like you said, Musso, just looking at his body language and everything out there, it just seems like sometimes he was uninterested in being out there on the field tonight. And just knowing Tom Brady as a competitor, again, I played against this guy for 5 years in the AFC East. There's no way he wants to end his career like that. I definitely think he's coming back. I just don't think it'll be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I agree. When you look at how the game ended for Tom Brady, guys, and when he walked off the field, he didn't walk off like it was my last time walking for football field. I didn't get that. Now, if you go back and think about the final game for the Green Bay Packers and how Aaron Rodgers departed the field, you felt more like, yo, the way he walked off, you remember he put his arm around Randall Cobb and it's like the last dance, they kind of just slowly walked off the field, entered the tunnel. You kind of felt more about Aaron Rodgers like, yo, that seemed like he was savoring every moment. Tom Brady didn't. For him to have the career he's had, and if this was his last ball game, one would think he's going to savor every moment. You're not just going to just get off the field and scamper off like everyone else who's coming back next year. You're going to sit there and really enjoy the moment, even though you lost. You know what I mean? So me personally, I agree. I think he will come back for at least one more year, knowing the competitor that he is. If you're going to go out, even if you go out in a loss, individually speaking, you want to put up nice numbers. Think about what he did last year when they played against the Rams, right? Short-handed in regards to the wide receivers. Tom Brady started off slow, but boy, in that fourth quarter, he made that thing extremely dicey. Even though they lost, you look like, wow, if that's how Tom is going out, man, bravo, bravo. For me, seeing how he exited the football field tonight, I think he's still got one more year left in him.
I completely agree with you guys, but being a competitor and being competitive are two completely different things. It feels silly to ask when you're talking about Tom Brady, but in your opinion, B-Mac, from what you saw over these last 20 or so weeks, is there championship football left in him?
I think there's playoff football left in him.
Okay.
In regards to championship football, the reason why I say no, because I don't know if he can win you a championship solely by himself based on what he's done in his past. I don't think he's that type of guy anymore. The cerebral part of the game is still there, but the arm strength seems to kind of declined just a little bit. So I think he's a guy that if you have all the pieces around him, most importantly, a nice structured offensive line, he can get you into the tournament. And then, of course, anything can happen. So if you're an organization that you're just missing one centerpiece, which is the quarterback, you need reliable play coming from the quarterback. Yeah, you might want to take a shot at Tom Brady, but in regards to Tom by himself getting you to a championship, nah, he's not that guy anymore.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.